All right. So let's begin. All right. So hello, welcome. Welcome to our Made in New York. Okay, wait. Someone put. Oh, okay. All right. Welcome everyone. So welcome to the animation project. Made in New York Animation Project Incentivized Industry Access event. I'm Kasima. I'm a creative arts therapist with TAP. And I'll be co-hosting today, well, working with Gabby. Gabby, did you want
Hi,
to go
everyone.
introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Yeah. Thanks for that introduction, Cosima. Hey, everybody. I'm Gabby. I'm an animator here. I'm Gabby Rios. I'm an animator here with the with TAT, with the animation project. And we're going to be co-facilitating today's industry access event. So we're going to have a pretty good time, everybody.
All right, so before we begin our session, we're just going to go over a few things, some information about the Zoom webinar. So we're going to be using Zoom. It's going to be in a webinar format. So for now, all attendees, will not be able to turn on their video or microphone during the webinar event. You will be counted in attendance as soon as you're logged in. You don't need to follow up with us regarding your attendance. If you lose connection, try to rejoin the webinar as soon as possible. You will still receive your incentive even if you get disconnected from the webinar. So as with all our industry access events, we have some goals. So we're going to go over today's goals. So we're going to start out with our opening ritual. Then we're going to review the TAP Creed, get into our guest speakers, Kathy Davenport Lee and Tracy Dindy. Then we're going to have a Q&A, and then we'll lead into our closing ritual. All right. So for today's opening, I was thinking, what is one self-care activity that you did this week? What did you do for yourself this week? And you're more than welcome to put your answers in the chat, and I can read some of them out loud before we move on. For myself, I went for my walk in the park as usual when the sun is about to set because it's not as hot. So that's what I did. Let's see, do we have any? Gabby, did you want to share your self-care?
Sure thing. I can share my self-care activity for this week. So every day, basically after work, I like to, take a nice unwind break by playing about like an hour or two of one of my favorite games and hooking up with the friends there and seeing how they were doing with their week. So it's kind of like a vent session underscored by playing a fantasy game and fighting giant monsters. So that's self-care for me.
Sounds like an adventure.
Oh, it is.
All right, so we do have some answers here in the chat. So Ayesha says they got a haircut. Jennifer says she got a self-care tarot reading from a friend. That's cool. Joseph went paddleboarding. Okay, that sounds like a vigorous workout there. Hunter says, I was able to get enough sleep because they haven't been sleeping enough lately. Seth exercise. Christian went out into the sun. Nafi, I'm doing some skincare every night. Joseph also, he does a daily at-home workout. Ugachi just relaxed and played music. Okay, we have quite a lot here, a variety of things. Max got sleep. JD used their acne cleanser and ointment to take care of their skin. Let's see. Sasha drew a favorite character from an anime. And Gloria took a long walk with her mom. And then someone says that they listen to music. And Leslie said they did some hobbies to make them happy. All right, that's excellent. Excellent. And we got hung out with friends. All right. Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. That's great. All right. So let's get into our TAP creed. So the first one is we show respect. We are a team of individuals from different backgrounds and experiences with a shared interest in learning. We live up to the same expectations as we would in person. We mute ourselves when we are not speaking in order for all voices to be clearly heard. All right. Gabby, did you want to read the next one?
Yeah, I was coming right in. You could already sense me. I could see. So number 2, we take care of our technology. We utilize our technology with care and professionalism in order to support the learning experiences of all who attend.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Gabby. Number 3, we focus. So we have a lot to learn. All of our attention is focused on the group. We do our best to limit distractions around us. We wear headphones if possible.
Awesome. I'll take number 4. 4, we participate. We are engaged in the group. We abide by the creed when asking questions and sharing our creative work.
All right, number 5, we own the content. This is our group. This is our opportunity to learn more about the animation industry and express ourselves creatively.
And here we go with number 6. We attend group. Our voices and ideas are valued. We attend each group we are registered for. We log into the group on time and stay until the end. Our Zoom names match our registration names.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabby. And now let's introduce our lovely guests. So we have Kathy Davenport-Lee and Tracy Dindy. We're very excited to have you here. Thank you both for being here today, this afternoon.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone. Good to see you. So we have a great presentation that we want to run through with you guys today, with you all today. Should we actually start the presentation now, or is there more that we should wait for first?
You are good to go.
All right, cool. All right, I will just share my screen. All right. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. Let me know if you can't. So today we're going to talk about getting a design job and some of the steps that we can take to get them. So you might have come to the talk that we did last time where we talked about different kinds of motion careers and what's available and different options. So we'll be talking a little bit about that, but we're mostly going to focus on the practicalities of getting a job today. So again, it's Tracy and myself today. Tracy, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Tracy Dindy, and I go by she, her pronouns, and I give the marketing team at HBO/Warner Brothers /Warner Media UX direction.
So I'm Kathy Davenport-Lee. I go by she, her pronouns. And until recently, I ran the team that Tracy is on. Just recently started a new job this week. So yeah, interesting. It relates to our presentation. So yeah, we just wanted to go over some talking points. So just so you know what you're in for today. And basically, so number 1, we're just gonna, again, just have a quick overview about narrowing down the type of job that you're looking for. Number 2, we're going to talk about making sure your work is available for people to look at, very important. 3, generally, just best portfolio practices, we're going to go over some. Number 4, we're going to go over some best practices for your reel. And then number 5, we're going to put it all together and talk about how do you actually get hired at a job. So without further ado, we're going to talk about what kind of job do you want? So, hopefully if you went to the last presentation, we went over, in a lot of detail, all these different categories. But I think the main point that I hope you kind of can take away from this is just that there's lots and lots of options. And I think when I graduated, I sort of thought there were like maybe two options. I was like, well, I can either try to work at Pixar or I can make banner ads. But in reality, there's so many other fields and different types of things that you can focus on. I really wish that somebody had told me that when I was in that spot. So we're trying to gather all that for you. And then this slide is just like a quick snapshot of some of the categories that we went into. And the top left is more of like if you're working on motion graphics, like toolkit packages for different types of live things. Like, so for instance, this is CNN news, and a motion designer would have made this title sequence that you see that says breaking news. I don't want to go over each and every example because there's so many, but there's also, if you look in the middle, there's sort of this like phone screen where you can kind of see a lot of different things from an app animating. So that's, for example, one type of career that I never would have realized when I was in school, which is actually that you can bring your motion skills into interactive products like that. That's cool. Also music videos. So the lower left-hand corner, we have Game of Thrones, and just the idea that there are actually teams of people that take this green screen footage and composite it with other footage to make it look real. 2D animation, 3D animation. There's a few examples of what the interactive design team does on a daily basis, which is social content. There's tons of use cases for that. So you have Issa Rae over here. This is something that we did for Premiere, this asset. And then to the right of that is an asset that was created for Westworld and put onto social platforms. Yeah, in the lower right hand corner is an example of some game. So there's a lot of options. I'm going to click forward. So besides there being a lot of different types of design that you can do as a motion designer, there's also a lot of different industries that you could potentially work in. So, you can think about like, the automotive industry. Maybe you want to like design 3D assets for cars. Like that's an option, right? But also, the field that interactive design at HBO works in, I would say it's like a combination of marketing and entertainment. So there's obviously a lot of jobs in that area as well. But really any of these industries you could find, motion design jobs in if you're looking. And then the third sort of like category to consider is what type of working situation are you interested in? Are you interested in being an independent contractor or a freelancer? Are you interested in working for a creative agency? Are you interested in working for an in-house creative team at a brand? Are you interested in working at a startup? And there are all different kinds of, I think, pros and cons depending on who you are and what your preferences are. But, for instance, as a person who works in an in-house creative team, like in a brand, such as the interactive design team for HBO, you basically do get to focus on anything and everything HBO, HBO Max and Warner Brothers Discovery. So if that appeals to you, like that might be something you're interested in. A creative agency is going to focus more on the type of work because it's often, these vendors are often specialized. So you might want to work for a creative agency that only makes 30-second commercial spots, for instance. Maybe you want to work at a startup and kind of get a lot of experience doing all different kinds of things. Maybe you do want to be independent and sort of come in as a specialist when you're needed and then move on when you have other interesting projects happening. So that was just like a brief overview of, I'm gonna go back to this for a second, a brief overview of thinking about what kind of job you're looking for, what kind of category of design you're looking to do, what kind of working situation you're looking to have. And we just want to express also that you don't have to have it all figured out right now. It's really just a thought of like, how do I want to guide myself for the future? And the good news is you can decide to do one thing today, and then, you know, in a year or something, if it's not what you want, you can pivot. But it's good to have some guidelines in mind about what you think you might want to do, because then you can sort of rule things out. So then we're going to go on to showing off your work. No, so this is where we're going to start talking about portfolios, and I'm going to hand this off to Tracy at this moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna take over. So I'm gonna focus on talking more about best practices for portfolios, and this comes after when you've done your research and gone really deep inside and figured out what kind of work you want to go into, what kind of working situation you want, and then now you can start putting your portfolio together. You could do it without doing all of that, but it's nice to have a plan coming from there. So I'm not an animator, I'm a UX designer, I do UX design, but I have seen a lot of portfolios from students, and it is a, sorry, one sec. It is, sorry, what?
Oh, sorry, I was just asking if I skipped ahead too fast.
No, you're good. It is good to keep UX as a concept in your mind, and its user experience. It's the experience of the users of your portfolio and how they're going to experience the story that you're posting online about yourself. You're telling your story. So this first point is make yourself available. Posting your resume and your portfolio online means you're starting your professional story. And I know that animators are storytellers. So how do you want your story to begin? You can create a professional public profile and even a different email address to share your work on social media. But remember, on social, if you're making it public, watermark your work. Personal websites using like Wix and Canva, they give you more room to explain the project the way you want versus a reel or a social post, which is just a bit of like a flash tease. And you don't need to pay for things. Just so you know, you don't have to have a personal URL. It gives posting your resume and your profile on job sites is a good way to direct people to your portfolio. So it's nice to have a destination for hiring managers. So you can go to the next slide. So this is just a quick overview of the best practices for portfolios. As animators, you're already used to telling stories. So just take a project that you've worked on and turn it into a story. Give it a beginning, middle, and end. How did you work on it? And cater examples to the job that you want. You might be compelled to put everything you've ever made on there, but if you have, if you want to work in like animation and character modeling, you don't need to show your still life paintings from your drawing class. So make sure that you show only your best work, and look up the job descriptions, research the company, look at what other people who were hired in this position are, like how they got there, what their experience was, and then you can see like where your path fits in against theirs. But everyone's unique also, remember. Fake work is great, do it. It shows that you're able to learn and teach yourself based on the ability to take a tutorial online, and it gives you a chance to practice the actual work that you want to be able to do. It's not always what you have available from classes or what you did in school. So it's great, do it. But and this works into the last point of showing the work you want to do. You're looking up the career that you want to work towards, and then you're practicing the work that you want to show for that job. So it's always relevant to whoever you're telling about your experience. But don't plagiarize. You never know what a hiring manager has seen on the internet, and they might recognize a tutorial if you've copied it exactly. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So I'm a UX designer. So I had to put in a flow chart because that's my life. And this is based on some job descriptions that I found on Disney Careers, where it's 2 jobs for the same Marvel Animation Studios group. And you can take one project that you worked on with the team at TAP or on your own, wherever, but take it and focus it to the job description of that specific job. And then you can have your one reel, but then like the parts that you pull out for your portfolio would be applicable to what you are wanting to do. So like previs, you would want to get into how you're really good with rough 3D modeling and show it the examples and the work in progress shots of you working on the staging and the cameras. And then if you want to go into background concept art, that's a totally different part. You want to show like the props that you designed or the finished sets that you were a part of. And I just wanted to do that to show how, sorry, yeah, Kathy, to show how you can retool whatever whatever work you have available to a job description. It doesn't have to be a unique project or brand new. So a quick recap for these portfolios is, I mean, again, I'm UX, so I like to use UX principles when I'm thinking about portfolios, and a couple that I think are interesting and useful are what is called chunking, and it just means that you're taking all of this information and you're grouping it into little bite-sized pieces, and it makes it easier for people to remember. It's a part of having your portfolio be scannable because people are always looking at so much work. And then there's another one that's they're called the recency effect and the primacy effect. There's a lot of psychology in UX, and it just means that people remember the very first thing they saw and the very last thing they saw more than anything in the middle, which is really good to think about when you're planning your reel or how you want to introduce yourself during an interview or any of those things. And it's good to think about how a stranger might experience your work. So you have a chance in interviews to explain your work and what you want them to see in a reel or in a screenshot that you're posting. But if you have any of your stuff public, or if you're putting your resume on LinkedIn, you want to think about how other people are going to read through it, what how they'll experience it as your audience. More points, more things to remember are: get familiar with the value you bring to a group project. Are you a leader that keeps track of everyone's tasks, or are you the workhorse that's knocking everything off the to-do list every day? Or are you the daydreamer that comes up with the crazy ideas? And those are unique parts of you that you bring to a team. And so it's good to remember what's unique about you, and then you can communicate that with your descriptions of how you what you learned in a project and what other people found valuable about your contribution. A portfolio is a lot about explanations. But don't worry about your portfolio being perfect. You're inevitably gonna update it in a year when you have more work. So don't get precious. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to make it perfect before you put anything online, because you'll be able to update it. Keep that in mind and be easy on yourself. And next, Kathy is going to go into more detail about Reels. And I think it's really useful to start with Reels and then go to your portfolio, because it's more like your portfolio is just the reel broken down and it's put into chunks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point that you're making, Tracy, that the reel sort of forces you to think about everything that you've made and figure out a really quick way to summarize it so that you can scan it easily, to your point. I do want to, I just want to reiterate what Tracy said about don't put too much pressure on yourself. like, like Tracy said, you don't necessarily have to have some perfectly made website. You can use, Behance, you can use Instagram. And even when it comes to reels, a reel can be really helpful, really, really helpful when you are a motion designer, because you are, that's literally what you're creating. But if you don't have enough work to make a reel, it's not necessarily a deal breaker. You just need to be able to show. Having said that, let's say you do want to make a reel. Let's talk about it. So yeah, a lot of the best practices for reels feel very similar to the best practices for portfolios. But one thing I just want to mention off the top is to really keep it brief. Because like as Tracy sort of made this point already, a lot of there's going to be a lot of applicants, and the people who are looking at these are going to be looking at quite a few of them, and it helps to kind of keep it between 1 to 2 minutes, or even less than a minute is fine. I wouldn't go too much over 2 minutes. Again, fake work is okay. I remember when I was, in sort of like the entry slash, mid-level, I would do things like I would look at like the Sprite logo and make a few animations for it, and put those into like my portfolio as examples of, this is what I can do with your brand. So I would really, really encourage that, because that's how you sort of, the best way to show somebody that you're qualified is to show them work that looks like the work that you would be doing at the job. And so if you don't have it, faking it, totally fine. Have a plan before you start. We're going to get into this in the slides that follow, but it's a really good idea to just start with a list of what you want to include, like type it out, or write it down. But the list is going to really help you organize your time and your thoughts around it. And then the last thing I would just say is, especially as your reel gets bigger and you show a lot more things, make sure you label what the category of the work is that you're asking people to look at. Because you might show a beautiful 3D animation, and maybe what you want people to look at is the lighting, but they'll never know that unless you point it out to them. So it's important to kind of point that out. All right, so having said that, let's look at an example. And I do want to preface, the sound was not working earlier, and that's okay. We're gonna just watch the reel really quickly anyway. But it actually does make an interesting point here, which is that in a lot of situations, people are going to turn your sound down anyways. So you might want to just like not spend too much time worrying about it. So I'm going to play this. I'm gonna keep going. I actually played our full reel instead of like Q's reel, but I think we got the point. We got the picture. I'm gonna keep. Here we go. So let's break down the process of creating a reel, and how do we sort of get to a finished piece. So first you want to gather all the parts that you're looking at. You want to get all the different clips you might want to have. And if there are things that you think you should have that you don't want to have, or you don't have yet, you would want to make a note of that. You also want to make a text outline. So you want to write down how you want that reel to flow out, and which things you want to include, including like, the literal clip that you want. If there's something, like I said, you don't have ready, you can make a placeholder. You can just have sort of a blank screen, or a screen with like some text on it that says, this example of this logo is going here when it's ready. Then after you have your plan and your parts together, you want to make an animatic first, rather than launching into the full finished piece. And so an animatic just means it's just a very rough edit where there's zero transitions, zero fancy stuff, and it's really just straight cuts in between all the pieces. And the point of doing this is that you get a sense of how long the piece is and what the timing is. And also if there's anything missing, you can kind of address it. And if you haven't put those transitions in, it's a lot easier to edit. So after you've done all that and you have an edit that you like, that's when it's time to add those fancy transitions and fancy touches. I can't even tell you when I was a student, I remember like putting this really cool animation of my name, and I spent hours on this, and then I sort of got to that point, and I sort of like still had a whole lot to go. But I would save that kind of thing to the end, so that you only have to do it once. You don't have to change it if you decide to make changes. So just an example of what does a text outline look like that you might put together. So this is one that we created for Game of Thrones did a bunch of interesting emerging technology in the 8th season. And we needed to make a reel because we needed to send it to different award sites to try to get an award for it. So this is an example of an outline that we put together of all the pieces that were needed. So you see things like the names of the different items that are going to be in the reel under emerging technology campaign. And then there's different sections. So one experience is called Beyond the Wall. It's a VR experience. And we wrote notes here, like we want to have an establishing shot of a person in a headset so that you know it's VR. And then the rest of these are different shots of captured footage that we have of parts of the experience. And we decided that this was the best way to tell the story, without having a really big long thing, and so on and so on. So the second thing I want to show here is a style board, and a style board is it is like a type of animatic, and specifically for motion pieces, you might be already used to this. When you work on a commercial spot or something, you often have to get what's called these style boards approved ahead of time. And it just shows very simply like what's going to be happening in this animation. This is actually my old portfolio website from many years ago, but you can see like when I worked on this project at this place called Luxurious Animals, I sort of put my role here as senior art director. I was also the designer and compositor because this is a startup, so I was doing all kinds of jobs. But I collaborated. I coordinated the team that actually created the whole thing, including managing the 3D designer that worked on some of the stuff inside of here. And then I also did the design for the style boards, and I took the green screen footage that was shot of this, my gosh, I forgot his name. He's a very famous golfer who I took the green screen footage of him and actually composited it as well. But so I won't play the whole thing, but you can kind of get the sense that there's a lot of oranges. He's dressed in orange. He's swinging in oranges, and then they all explode at the end. So so when I put this together for my portfolio, I basically showed the style boards I created. I showed the finished piece, and then I had an explanation about what the process was and what I specifically did. Right. Okay, so now we're at the good part. The actually getting hired part. All right, so I think probably the first question that comes up when you're talking about how to actually get hired is, where do you look for jobs? Where to go? We sort of put our heads together, Tracy and I, and came up with a few different categories that we think are helpful. So the first category we have here is networking and advocacy groups. I would really recommend these. There's a lot of different groups that are targeted for different things. And if you just Google search it, you'll find that there are Slacks, there are private Facebook groups. And I would really recommend these because most of these advocacy groups or networking groups have a job board section, and they are actively trying to help you get hired. So the ones I have here are We're the Black Designers, which is an advocacy group specifically for Black designers, but also BIPOC designers in general. Panimation, which is an advocacy group for women and people who identify as LGBTQIA+. And then the third one is just like a general New York City motion graphics private Facebook group, for instance. But there's so many more of his. I would just look around. The second category here is awards organizations. And there's quite a few, but the ones that sort of came to mind were Motionographer. They give out motion awards, the FWA, the AW Awards. And again, all of these award sites generally have job boards. And the great thing about them is that those jobs are really focused on designers. So you don't have to wade through like a really huge platform like LinkedIn or Indeed. You can just you just know automatically that the jobs that are posted there are design jobs. I'm going to hand the rest off to Tracy to talk through.
Yeah, so the next group is recruiting companies. It's similar to job listings, but it's also, there are recruiting companies that are focused on tech industry or entertainment industry, or like ZipRecruiter, which is super broad, but you can make profiles on them or get in contact with recruiters who will do a lot of the application sending, and they'll get you interviews, and that can be really nice if that's not what you have time to focus on. And then you can always directly reach out once you've done some research, or you know that there's a company you really want to work for. You can dig in and see who the hiring manager is that you might have been interacting with if you were going to get an interview, and then message them and send them your resume and be nice. And JobScan is just a neat service that will compare your resume or your LinkedIn profile to job descriptions that you copy and paste into it. And it's just nice for keeping track of keywords and relevancy in your listing.
So I just have a few screenshots of these. And one thing I wanted to add to what Tracy said is, I think the one thing we didn't sort of put here is I wouldn't just blindly apply to every single job you see on LinkedIn for a couple reasons, right? One, because it's a huge platform and it's so there's so many different kinds of jobs there that it can be easier to focus. But two, it's just really better to try to talk to a real human being whenever you can. Because a lot of those posted jobs kind of go to these automated intake things, and it takes a while for it to get to a real human. So it's faster to find, a Slack group where you can DM the person who posted the job, or if you're directly reaching out to somebody, and things like that. But again, the top left is Motionographer's jobs. The bottom left is Panimation. The middle is where the Black Designers job board. The right is ZipRecruiter. My handle, yeah, ZipRecruiter. And then the bottom is just that NYC Motion Graphics Facebook group I mentioned earlier. We also put an example of a job description that Interactive Design is used to hire people. And what I wanted to do at this slide is just once you've found a job position that's posted, I think there's some good questions that you're going to want to ask yourself, so that you have all the information you need. One, think back to the slides earlier about what kind of job do you want. Ask if it's freelance or full-time. Is it on site? Is it hybrid? Is it completely remote? Do you have to live in the United States? Those are some basic ones that are good to know. But also really knowing what are the responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. Do those sound like something you like or want to do? And do knowing the software qualifications are also important. Do you need to know After Effects? Do you need to know a specific 3D program? Those are all really good questions to ask. I think though the other thing I would also check is, when was this job posted? If it was posted more than a week ago, I would just really double check to make sure it's still open, because a lot of times these things are posted left and right to every single platform under the sun, and it takes a while for them to be updated and pulled down. I think there's a lot more we could talk about with this area. But you know, we don't have hours and hours and hours. Maybe that can be its own presentation sometime. But at this point, we wanted to just stop and see what kind of questions you guys have for us.
Well, I have a question that I was thinking about to ask you both. So as like a designer and like you work on all these projects, like what's been y'all's like favorite projects to work on? Have you had like a favorite project or something you like really enjoyed doing, like something you could do over and over again?
Oh, wow. Do you want to go first, Tracy? And then I'll
Yeah,
go?
I definitely do. I've really loved, we've had some big Game of Thrones projects that there's a ton of content created around the Game of Thrones like franchise, and it's so much to organize, and you always have to like keep everything in mind, keep all the characters in mind, spoilers, and there's been a lot of work done on just organizing that, and that kind of thing that's my jam. I like to organize. So that's what I've loved. And then I also love prototyping. Like that's a motion part of UX, is that you get to prototype micro animations, and it's more product related, but that's always really fun because it's exciting to do.
That's cool.
I mean, it's really hard to pick just one, but I think Game of Thrones is a good like general bucket because there's been so many exciting things that we've done for it. I mean, I guess I would point to, we got to do a VR, like for the last season, we did so many things because it was last season, and we got to do a VR experience where you fight different whites, and it's like that battle scene from the end of season 7 where they're like stuck on the ice and they're surrounded by
Yeah.
and so you can experience that in VR. And then there was also an AR version with the Magic Leap like headset where you can look at a wall and the wall becomes like frosted over, and then a White Walker breaks out of it, and again you're sort of fighting him. There was from the yeah, there's a lot of fighting from the sort of like web area. Like there was a website that we created for fans that had to be internationally adapted to 20 different countries that Tracy worked on. That was you know, really involved and like a really interesting problem to work on. There's so many, like from a motion perspective, it's like it's hard for me to pick out one because every single thing has motion design in it, and that's like sort of the thing that gets me really excited about the job opportunities today, is that when I started out, like I went to school at the end of the 90s, and when I graduated, like there were such few possibilities, and the people that I know who focused on that really had to accept a lot of uncertainty in their job placements. And I think there's so many things that have changed about like how social media has evolved. And there's the fact that it's actually possible to do really cool motion things technologically is something big that changed. So like, for instance, in 2014, suddenly you could upload like not just a GIF, but a fully animated MP4, which just seems so small, but it just meant that overnight we could actually put really, really cool motion things that could play instantly into social feeds, which made the demand for motion designers explode. Like we went from having 0 full-time motion designers to having 5. So, and we need more. We always need more. But like it's yeah, but like the world is exploding with opportunities. So I mean, that would be my sort of like underline I would make, I guess.
Thank you. Oh, we have a couple of questions in the chat for you ladies. So first question, how did you get started in the marketing industry?
That's a really good question. So I mean, I think that the marketing is it's one of the places that I think tends to hire creatives the most. So I think when I was looking at jobs, like for like my first big job after school, there were a few different digital creative agencies, and the one I ended up working with was called Big Spaceship. But those places exist because there are these marketing teams at brands like HBO and other brands that they need to make campaigns that have like jazzy elements in them. So it sort of just happened naturally that I got into it. And because there's just like so much marketing jobs available.
Yeah. It's kind of what entertainment is
Yeah.
in some respect.
Yeah.
All entertainment, all products need marketing.
I think like
So-
I certainly, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I certainly would have been, if Pixar had called me up like when I graduated and said, "Hey, you want a job?" I would have been sure. I would have been like, "Of course." But like, yeah. I mean, I think it was harder for me to know like who's the right people to reach out to, especially at that moment of my life, at that moment in time. I think it's a lot easier now because there's all these networks.
Okay. Thank you. The next question for both of y'all, like, what is y'all's work schedule? How much hours and days do you work? So is it like a set schedule, or y'all have like really long hours?
I mean,
I make a set schedule. I don't know about Kathy. Kathy's
yeah, I just switched jobs. But no, I mean, I think for HBO, I think it is pretty, like, there's a pretty normal expectation, I would say, of like a week is like 40 hours ish, like maybe give or take a few, and you can like set expectations that like, oh, I have to pick up my kids at 5, I need to go, or whatever. There are moments there's obviously like there's premieres that come over the weekend, there's like there are emergencies and things like that, but I would say like, from our standpoint, like those aren't the norm. It's sort of like, it's like it's something that we deal with when it comes up.
Yeah, and you can prepare for it. Hopefully, you like
Yeah.
prepare it on Friday to make sure you don't have to be online on Saturday that long.
Yeah.
But it depends on the industry, because like, so TV, yeah, you're on the weekends because that's when things premiere. But if you're in e-commerce or retail, then you're gonna work holidays because that's when people shop, and like that can be annoying. But now with a lot of people being hybrid and being in different time zones, hopefully companies that have a good culture are respectful of your time and aren't going to try to make you attend a meeting at 7 a.m. your time.
I mean, you're making
yeah.
such a really good point, which is that no matter what your job sort of stated hours are, it's good to come in with like a really strong POV of like, well, these are the hours I'm available. This is like when I have something going on. These are like when I need to sleep, because I think well, I mean, especially with the remote situation, we went from like everybody mostly being in the same time zone to everyone being in any kind of unpredictable time zone. And I know with like, with my new job, it's much more global, and I actually have blocked out on the calendar the hours when I sleep so that I don't like, because you can't expect people to just automatically know that like the 6 a.m. in the UK is like whatever 3 a.m. for me. So yeah, so I would like proactively block your schedule and be really good at communicating like what your sort of expectations are.
Thank you. We still have a few more questions here. Another one. So what is one of the most important things that makes your resume stand out? So what do y'all have on your
Good
resume that makes it stand out? Yeah.
Think experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree with that. I think it's like
It sucks for students though.
yeah, I mean, I would say like to me, from the standpoint of like, hiring other designers, like the most important thing is really the portfolio, and the resume is nice because it's like it's a nice to see a summary that's in text form of like, oh, this is what this person actually did at this job or whatever. But I think it's like more important to show that you are able to make the kinds of things that the place is making. Would be my
Yeah, so that's true, because it doesn't have to be work experience, like job experience, because I know that being entry level, that's the worst. It feels like every entry level still says you need 2 years, and it's like, where is that supposed to come from?
Yeah.
But I think you can show, like, you can use projects, you can use TAP, you can say these things that are experiences that you've had, and explain, like, you can use your resume to show the experiences and your skills like that. But yeah, portfolio, just send them to your portfolio.
Yeah. Also just like trying to make sure that when you do your description, think about it from like when you actually write down the descriptions, think about like what, not just what did you do, but what was the impact of what you did. It's like you might have been saving files and cropping images, but the impact of that might be that you were helping to support, like if, like for instance, you work on HBO Max, a platform, you're helping to support a platform that is the main source of income for HBO, and you worked on a series of like 300 titles over the course of a year, which like, automatically just like bumps it up a lot.
Look up keywords.
Cool, thank you. We have time for one more. All right, so someone asked, what is your least favorite thing about your job? You have like a least favorite thing, something you dislike. I think.
Kathy can say it because she's not at HBO anymore.
And my least favorite thing. I think the least favorite thing is just there's so many people on the projects, and it's not necessarily bad. It just means that you have to get a lot of different kinds of approvals before you can move something forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's this industry, is it, we're in this huge company where there's a lot of stakeholders and everything. But I guess I could say that hard to say my least favorite part.
It's like I feel like you could
Yeah.
say like what's challenging, what can be challenging or something. So I think they're
Oh, and what's a favorite part too? The favorite part
yeah.
about the job? If y'all could ask that too.
you said you answered the favorite one since you're sworn. Yeah.
Being around more creative people is really, really nice. There's times where I used to work at startups mostly, and so I was the only creative person, and that was really hard because you're speaking a different language in a lot of cases. So being in a team with other creatives is a huge plus. And then that's probably what I would say my least favorite part is like the politics of trying to communicate with people who speak a different language, but only figuratively. Do you have a favorite part, Kathy?
Oh,
Or
my
as we're out of
favorite-
time.
Oh yeah, I guess we're out of time. But yeah, I mean for HBO, I think my favorite part was just like I went from, I worked in marketing for so many years, like 16 years or something before I even got to HBO. And working at agencies that sell everything is different than working for a company that sells something that people really, really, really want, I just remember I went from like working on a website for like crest whitening strips at one point to coming to HBO, and like the first thing that I made that got posted for True Blood, it got 60,000 likes in like 30 seconds. And it just like blew me away. So it was cool to make something for sale that people want to buy. That's what I like to buy. Yeah.
Oh, I used to love True Blood.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Tracy. That was a wonderful presentation and very informative. And thank you for answering all those questions too.
Absolutely, and thanks for, oh wait, I'm sorry. Are we supposed to do the closing ritual now, or are we sending more fun links into this chat? Ah, yes. Closing
Yes, we're supposed to do our closing. And Tracy and Kathy are more than welcome to join us. We usually have a closing ritual after each session. So we're going to do a little stretching and breathing. So before we exit the space and begin our weekends. So we take a few deep breaths, everyone. Let it out. Breathe in again. Let it out. Let's do one more breath, one more big deep breath. Let it out. And we're gonna do a little bit of stretching. You guys can stretch any way you want, whatever resonates with you, or feels good to you. You can do it. You stretch. And all right. Okay, everyone. Well, we're at our end. Gabby, did you want to add anything else before we?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming
anything?
to our Industry Access event. Remember to stay connected with TAP, following all of our social media. Screenshot that bad boy, please. It's a lot faster than reading it yourself and going to these. And I know you're not going to them now, so screenshot it. And then we're going to put a few more links in the chat. Those links also, you can screenshot them. And they should, let me see. Yeah, that's all of our social media stuff. So you should be able to go there and see previous works by TAP and then things that are, of course, being worked on for groups. So that's about it. And have a great weekend, everybody.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.